UConn wins their conference road opener at DePaul. We'll recap. This is Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On UConn. I am Matt Stravisky, a two-time graduate, 10-year credentialed media member, and host of the only daily UConn sports podcast, Locked On UConn. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and thank you for making this your first listen each and every single day. On today's show, we will recap Sunday's win over DePaul, then Solo Ball's injury. Is it serious? And finally, we'll continue Fenway Bowl prep as we take a look back at the Huskies defense this season. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Sunday night saw the Huskies come away on the road for the first time in conference play this season with a 72-54 win over DePaul. Several things to discuss today. Biggest thing, what is the status of Solo Ball? We'll talk about that in the second segment. But just recapping the game, the injury bug once again coming into play here for the men's basketball team. Another key piece, missed time. But they still won by 18 points. Next man up mentality. And who led the way? None other than your leader in a situation on the road, first time in conference play without your leading scorer. Alex Karaban comes to the table, 21 points on 7 of 12 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, also racked up 6 boards. So when it was necessary, Karaban once again coming to the table. Terrace Reed, 14 points on 7 of 12, and then Silas Demery, 13 points, 8 assists. 7 rebounds, filling up the stat sheet, and he also had to leave the court. If you're watching the game, you saw him go like this. He ran off the court during a dead ball, and up is coming. He got sick on the court. Had to be cleaned up. After the game, Hurley was talking about how he mixed some pickle juice with some other concoction that he had, and it was a bad idea. He's fine. But Demery, I said, remember back to last week's shows, Silas Demery will come around. Got 13 points. He got to the line, 6 of 7 from the free throw line. 8 assists, getting his other teammates involved, and he made an impact, second leading rebounder on the team. I think it's the start of what Silas Demery is going to become later on this season for the Huskies. Off the bench, Jaden Ross led the way with 24 minutes. He had 6 points. Malachi Smith and Eric Riba. So they kind of went to an 8-man rotation. Ross got more time than Jalen Stewart. Braylon Mullins, once again, had 4 fouls, but still was able to play 29 minutes. So the Huskies pieced it together. Once again, not at full strength. And they came away with an 18-point win. But for the second straight Big East Conference game, they've played 2. They're 2-0. Slow starts. Remember back to Butler, that 9-0 run they gave up. It was 11-4 first media, or 11-4 first media break. Against DePaul, trailing again, early. Only up 3 at the half, 33-30. And then they got it together in the second half and put it away. They won the second half by 15. Defensively, they shut down DePaul, who only shot 36% from the field and 23% from the three-point line. So you're missing a key piece, yet the rest of the roster came to the table and got the job done, and defense led the way. Defense led the way. The offense came because if you remember what we talked about last week, if one guy's not producing, and in this case, Solo Ball wasn't even there, other guys can step in and your leader did. Alex Karaban, 21 points. So as we continue to look at what this team is capable of, I think you saw it in Sunday's game. They have to address the slow starts. Regardless of who's on the floor, they're deeper and more talented than anybody they're going to play this season. You have to enter in to these games, especially in conference play, with a killer mindset. Take no prisoners from the jump, because they're recovering nicely and they're extending leads and playing very well in the second half. But these early first halves, they got to bring another notch at the start of these games. So going back again to what we talked about last week, Dan Hurley is in a perfect position as a head coach with a team that is as capable as this team is. Almost another 20-point win, yet still has things he can push and point to help drive improvement with this team each and every single day away from the public eye. What can we work on? What do we need to improve? We talked about rebounding early on in the season. So far, so good in Big East play. Once again, out-rebounded their opponent 40-28. On the offensive glass, 11-10. They dominated the defensive boards, 29-18. Some of that has to do with the missed shots DePaul had, but hey, Huskies are cleaning up on the glass. They won the offensive rebound battle, and they dominated on the defensive end. So the things that we've pointed to in the past, you're seeing continued improvement. Rebounding. Silas Demery coming around on the offensive end, getting points. You've got this rotation of players. You're going to probably be 9 deep with a healthy Solo. Off the bench, once Solo's back, you're talking Stewart, you're talking Jaden Ross, you're talking Ryba, and you're talking Malachi Smith. And how the Ross-Stewart minutes mix together, TBD. But Stewart got the start. He put in 6 points, 3 of 5 from the field. And then Ross got the 24 minutes off the bench in Solo Ball's absence. So it wasn't perfect by any stretch. The first half was, especially the first half of the first half, it was bad. Sleepwalking yet again. But like I said, Dan Hurley is going to have an opportunity here. And I think he relishes these situations where, hey, we're cruising in games overall. But there's things they can't do, especially as they get into later on in the season. These slow starts need to be cleaned up. Something tells me Hurley's going to get it cleaned up. So once again, Huskies won 72-54, another 18-point win. On the other side, we will talk about Solo Ball. Is he going to be out for an extended period or is he not? What did Hurley have to say postgame? We'll be back. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Looking for tickets to Saturday's Fenway Bowl up at Fenway Park in Boston, UConn and Army? Head to Game Time. I opened the Game Time app to look at that game and was surprised how fast it was to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. Went from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. The zone deal stood out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Back in on this Tuesday edition of Locked On UConn. And hey, we're switching gears from the overall big picture. UConn Huskies win 72-54 over DePaul to, hey, who was missing? It was Solo Ball. And he was out with a wrist injury, as Dan Hurley revealed post-game. And this is something that nobody was aware of after the game, after the win over Butler. He took a fall, as Hurley described, landed on his wrist. It's a shooting hand. And on Saturday, they went through walkthroughs, and he was having trouble shooting. So out of precaution, the Huskies held him out. Darren Hurley did provide the update post-game that, hey, if he was given another 1 or 2 days, he would have been perfectly fine to continue. We'll see if this extended rest ahead of the New Year's Eve matchup when the Huskies return to action is true. But there's no pregame media availability prior to DePaul. And the Big East has implemented a new injury report heading into games, large part due to the gambling issue in college sports. So 3 hours before games is what happens. Teams release injury reports. You're either questionable or you're out. In this case, 3 hours before the game, UConn released the injury report that Solo Ball was out. A lot of concern, obviously, given the injuries and the injury bug that has plagued the Huskies this season. With marquee guys, key contributors, missing time. So with Solo out, after both Braylon Mullins and Terrace Reed missed extended periods of time earlier this season, there was obviously concern. Ball averaging 15.4. Like I said, the depth and the rest of the team stepped up. Now, my main concern was Solo. He got out of that early season slump and put in his career high. Lights out. I'm hoping this is not a lingering issue. I'm hoping this is, as Hurley described, a quick fix where a couple more days rest and he would have been okay. But something to keep an eye on here for the 12-1 Huskies. Now ranked 4th in the nation. Continue to move up the poll. Because Ball put in those 26 against Butler. Played through it. The adrenaline got him through it. Now, if this is a lingering issue, I don't want to return back to early season struggles. So let's see what happens here. Stay close. I'm sure Dan Hurley will be asked about this and media availability next week. But it comes at probably a perfect time if you're going to get nicked up for Solo Ball, leading into DePaul, and then you have more than a week off before you return to action against Xavier on New Year's Eve. So I think, based on everything we've heard, that he will be back for Xavier, barring any setbacks between now and then. So that's the Huskies on the hardwood. And then, again, like I mentioned, 18-point win over DePaul. Have more than a week off. Xavier coming in. Excuse me. The Huskies going on the road to Xavier New Year's Eve evening at 5 p.m. But before then, we have a football game to talk to. The Fenway Bowl coming up on Saturday. It is game week. Yesterday, we talked about the offense. Today, we will talk about the defense, and we will shift gears to football on the other side of the break. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, the receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility, including great comebacks, such as the Patriots on Sunday night against Baltimore, down multiple scores and coming back for the win. So if you want it to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Back in on Locked On UConn and switching gears, like I said, to football in our final segment with the Fenway Bowl this Saturday, 2 p.m. at Fenway Park against Army. And we're talking UConn defense. A roller coaster ride, in my opinion, for how that unit played this season. Up and down and up and down. Great in the opener against CCSU. Spectacular for, 95% of that game at Syracuse. And then those critical moments down the stretch in games, especially early on in the season, with so many new guys that were introduced into this roster. It took time for them to gel together. It was going to take time. So when we look back and have an honest assessment of what happened defensively, listen, Matt Brock did a spectacular job in 2024. There are also areas where UConn was spectacular defensively this season. We'll get to that. And there's also a reason why Matt Brock is having a job next season in the SEC back at Mississippi State. Were there areas that were not up to par, not up to expectations, and maddening for fans? Absolutely. But if you take a step back and assess now that the season is over, they had 9 new guys coming in to play defense with this unit. Especially on that side of the ball. It's not just like you're plugging in one guy to backfill a corner over here or bringing in an extra middle linebacker or defensive lineman to fill a gap of a guy that's gone on to the NFL. When you're bringing 9 new guys into a brand new system, it takes time to gel. And you can't recreate game time in practice situations. So naturally, it was going to take a bit of time. Not impressed, even though it was a complete blowout in the season opener against CCSU. But then when the game flipped and they were up at Syracuse, you saw the potential of what that team was capable of until you got into hurry up and you got into pressure situations at the end of halves. End of first half against Syracuse. Syracuse goes hurry up. There's pressure on the defense for the first time in a season with all these 9 new players. Gave up that long drive at the end of the half. Field goal. Second half. Multiple score lead with 5 minutes to go. And it cost them. Because once again, still learning how to play with each other, play off one another. That up-tempo put them up against the wall. And they didn't have all their keys. They didn't go through prior experiences. And with those 9 new players, we saw the result. So, especially in an era where the transfer portal is bringing in so many new players, defense is going to be up and down. Offense, you can kind of sustain a bit. But your defense is going to ebb and flow, and it could be big gaps if you're having a significant amount of turnover, and that's what we saw at the start of the season. But there were some bright spots too. Brian Parham, semifinalist for Walter Camp Player of the Year, 116 tackles on the year, 10.5 sacks, finished top 10 in sacks. Huskies as a whole were 7th nationally overall at 3 sacks per game. So there are things to point to that you didn't like defensively. But even when it comes down to third down defense, 36th in the nation, there were situations, yes, where some missed tackles here, some missed tackles there. The scheme leads to that. So if you have a missed tackle, it's going to lead to a big play. If you look at Delaware, that game was over. Flag came out on that 4th down PI. Last drive of the game. Wasn't PI. The flag came down. Huskies ended up allowing the score, and then they lost in overtime. Same thing like at Syracuse. So early on in the season, down the stretch, going through those pressure situations with a new unit, they struggled. And they were going to struggle. But they eventually learned from those mistakes. And when things got tight, see Duke, strip sack, Huskies win. So there's a lot of grief, a lot of unhappiness with the defensive performance this year. I know some of these players won't be here going forward because they're entering the portal. Hey, who knows if some come back or not? Cam Chadwick, for instance, he got better and better and better as the season progressed. But listen, the defense wasn't terrible in 2025. They even closed games in certain situations, like Duke, your biggest win of the season. So that's a quick recap of the season as a whole. As we look ahead to Saturday, it's another option team. Heading into Air Force, UConn switched their defensive setup, added an extra defense alignment to try to slow down the Air Force attack. I think you see something similar heading into Army on Saturday. I don't think you're playing and sitting back in this 3-3-5. I think you're putting more up front, stacking the box. And I think Matt Brock will have that set up in a place that's going to potentially lead to success. Now, let's see how it transpires. Army's coming off that 17-16 loss to Navy. Huskies are going to have to tackle. They're going to have to stay true to their assignments and not try to do too much, because that's what happens. When that happens, that's what opens up seams for this offense to run through. So I know there is this mindset that the UConn defense was terrible this year. And listen, they did not have a great final game. But I saw continued improvement throughout the season where, hey, potentially this could be the side of the ball that maybe carries the team on Saturday. Especially, and they're going to have to step up. Because especially without Joe Fagnano on the offensive side of the ball, a lot is going to be leaned on by this team with the defensive performance of the Huskies this coming Saturday. And if they continue that improvement, you're going to see ultimately it pay off to a 10th win for the first time in program history. So Army presents a challenge, no doubt about it. But I think you have a team that's going to play with a chip on their shoulder on the defensive side of the football. And it could be the reason why the Huskies come out on top on Saturday. So as we go through the rest of the week, we will talk more football. We will talk more basketball. We will talk about also Toledo. Had a bowl game on Tuesday. We'll talk about that Wednesday. But for now, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On UConn. Please hit the like and subscribe button. And for a second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, hosted by Peter Bukowski, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. As always, go Huskies!